Darling, we've had one hell of a time, but the question on everybody's mind, where is the
Matt, I think you'll find that I have a very improvisational sort of approach to podcasting each time. I've been doing it for so long, and you'd think that I just know how to open an episode now, and I just have a tried and true way of doing it, but I don't. Every single time.
The way that he does it is like a magic trick, because you don't even know. He's already started the show. It's already
You don't even know we're already in the beginning of the episode of Ideas Don't Bleed. Presented by Ashcan Press with Matthew Rosenberg.
That's right.
That was beautiful. I feel like I never got to see Miles Davis perform, but I feel like I'm in the presence of that. I feel like I can feel the energy, and I want to improv with you, and I'm not good at that. So, yeah, hi, I'm Matthew Rosenberg, comic book writer, and I guess podcast host now for some reason. And
we did when Donnie and Ryan started their shows, we went into their Wikipedias and we added podcaster to their list of job titles. And so now if you like Google like Donnie Cates, it'll say it'll speak out loud that they're podcasters. We could do that for you if you're interested.
Well,
we could make it happen.
Funny note, someone Donnie has a Wikipedia because Donnie went on Twitter and was like, why don't I have a Wikipedia? And someone made one. And then Donnie said to me, you should do that. And I said, you know what I really don't want? A Wikipedia. So I don't have a Wikipedia. Now I'm probably going to be cursed with one. But the New York Times writer, Matthew Rosenberg, has one. So you can go call him a podcaster. And, you know, he's a friend of the room. We follow each other on Twitter.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Little Matthews Club.
Should you guys introduce yourselves before we get to our guest?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I did me, and I feel like...
That's Matt Rosenberg.
That's Matt Rosenberg.
You don't have to do me. I did.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. All right.
We are Matt's lackeys, the Supple Boiz. I'm Ethan S. Parker. That's Griffin Sheridan.
Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the show. We're joined by a very special guest for this next installment. We've had the likes of Ed Brisson and so much Kelly Thompson in the past few episodes.
A lot of Kelly Thompson.
Much.
And we love it. Love it. And with us this time on Ideas Don't Bleed is a Mr. Zeb Wells. Zeb, welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. It was an honor to be here the moment this thing gelled. To be here for the moment the podcast.
I know. You got to see the magic happen.
Yeah. It gelled. I could feel it. We can all
the first few episodes are ugly. This is when the show comes into its own.
I feel like we're going to call the first 4 episodes -4, -3, -2, -1, and this will be the real episode 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Legacy number 5.
Yeah. Legacy number 5.
Legacy numbering is 5 on this.
It's a .1. It's number 1.idb.
.pc for podcasts. All of this works great on Spotify. Zeb, thank you for coming, buddy.
Of course.
It's
anything for you, Matthew. You know that.
Oh my gosh. Wow, what an honor. I'm going to go a little bit beyond the basic boring stuff. Like Zeb, you were at Marvel a while ago. About what, 10 years ago? You were doing comics?
No, 20 years. I started 20 years ago.
Okay. And you did what was your first thing?
Tangled Web of Spider-Man, number 12.
Oh, so you started on Spider-Man. Cool.
Yeah.
Normal starting span. And you basically, if I'm mapping this correctly, I definitely got the timeline way off, so it seems like a good start. You were doing a bunch of stuff, bouncing around. You did New Warriors. I know, I love that New Warriors. You did a lot of stuff, and then sort of I feel like the big breakout moment for you was on Amazing, that you were part of the Brain Trust. Do you feel like that's like leveled you up there? Or do you feel like that was a logical progression?
Yeah, I do. Although I never felt like I ever broke out in my first leg of my career. I never felt, it never felt that way. It never felt like I was succeeding or doing anything that anyone was paying attention to at any time.
Really? Because you have that Blizzard.
That's how it felt.
That Blizzard issue of Amazing Spider-Man, I've told you this before, is like in my top 5 Amazing Spider-Man issues in probably my top 10 comics. I think.
Yeah. Why do
awesome.
you feel like it felt that way if you were part of the part of the circle?
Maybe it was just the headspace I was in. It was weird. Like Matthew brought up starting on Tangled Web of Spider-Man. I think that really made me feel like I did not know what I was doing. And I was always like, maybe I just felt like I hadn't proven myself. And then when I got on Amazing Spider-Man and you're in a room with Dan Slott, who has so many freaking ideas.
Yes.
Times. And I worked on my 3 issues for months and pulled my hair out. And it was like pulling teeth. And the first 10 pages of my first issue took weeks. And Wacker was furious and saying, where is it? And I was just like, stay away. I'm trying to pretend to be a writer. Stay away.
Right.
And so maybe that sort of the headspace I was in, which was unpleasant, an unpleasant headspace, was maybe seeping in to the whole thing, and I couldn't enjoy or see that I was breaking out there if I did indeed break out.
That's interesting because you did seem to like kind of burst onto the Spider-Man scene, and then now that you're doing the main book, it's like, oh yeah, of course, it's been so many years. Like it's definitely Zeb's time.
Yeah, right.
I'm sort of the thing I'm curious about, and for me, like I really loved your stuff when you were at Marvel. Like you did so many things, and all the time I'd be reading stuff that was like, like one shots or small minis. And I'd be like, man, that was really good. And I kept being like, oh yeah, it's Zeb Wells. Like, and I just kept like, your name kind of stuck with me on a lot of stuff. And then you vanished like from comics. I know that like you didn't vanish to you know where you were, but, but like, I felt like I didn't know where you went. And like, I feel like a lot of the audience didn't know where you went. And actually for me as a creator, like when I was coming up, it sort of terrified me because I was like, man, that guy was really good. Did they just stop giving him work? And like, I remember saying once to someone when I started at Marvel, I was like, yeah, you always get scared because you don't know when the axe is going to come and you're not going to get the call anymore, or like, you're just not in vogue. And I was like, and I said like, I think about like Zeb Wells, like that guy's so good. And they were like, oh no, he's fine. He left. He went to greener pastures. So like, I was just wondering if you could like talk about that, like where you went and what you were doing.
Yeah. Yes. And it will get very depressing and heady and be about, I
love it. That's what we're here for.
Okay. So I just never figured out how to write comics and not drive myself crazy. And it sounds like a little thing, and once you kind of figure it out, it feels like a little thing, but at the time it was really like making my life unpleasant. And so my wife was watching me just freaking killing myself and being really depressed over Nova number 7, and it's like, and she was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why are you doing this? What are you doing? And I was like, you're right. And then, but I never didn't love comics. It was almost like I loved it too much and it was freezing me up. And I just couldn't like turn the dial back 15% so I could enjoy it, allow for some mistakes, allow for things not to be perfect. And so I think at a certain point, you know what? And then my dad died, which again, I don't know what kind of podcast this is, but
well, it's a different kind now, but yeah.
Yeah. My dad died. I don't know if anyone's father has died, but it's
sure.
It's rough. It's rough because something you just didn't think would ever be gone foolishly is just gone.
Yeah.
And
were you at Marvel at the time?
Yeah. I was at Marvel, and Steve Wacker was so sweet about it. He even let me, like 6 months after he died, Steve had an idea for an Avenging Spider-Man issue that I did with Steve Dillon, which was all about the anniversary of Uncle Ben's death. And, like halfway through it, I realized, oh shit, Steve came up with this for me to like say what I needed to say or like what I was feeling. It's super cool. Like Steve Wacker's a great freaking guy.
Sure.
Yeah. but it was in that where my wife saw me get even more dark and more depressed. And then these comics, and then it's just like, and then I started, I got an opportunity to direct Robot Chicken. And Robot Chicken was an interesting job where whenever I felt like I was outgrowing it, there would be an opportunity to do something that I hadn't done before or level up in a way. So I had always wanted to direct. So I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I get to direct Robot Chicken. But that was a wild job as far as the hours it took. And and especially doing it for the first time, you're so involved in doing it right. You want to show up 100%. And then, so I had pretty much decided that I quit. And then Steve came in and got Nova out of me. He got one more out of me, Nova. And then he came to me and said, I know you quit, but we got this Elektra book. And we want to do it. And by the way, Mike Del Mundo wants to try. And it's like, well, I am no longer, because I have an unhealthy obsession with Elektra. You know, I don't know. I read
You're a pervert.
Electra Lives Again. Nothing like that. I wouldn't dare. But I read Elektra Lives Again like on a cold Colorado morning, and it was like super depressing and just imprinted on me. Blah, blah, blah. I couldn't say no to that. But then my wife heard me over talk, like somebody asked me about it at dinner and I hadn't told her, you know, which is a warning sign. And then she was like, what are you doing? Like this, you're directing this show, you're going to go crazy. And it was an ongoing. And so I had to like really think about it and like take a day and then like do this brutal thing. Like I had written an outline. I might have even written the first scene, and I shot an email off to Wacker saying, I'm done, I'm out. And I think that was traumatic enough that, you know, pissed people off at Marvel, rightfully so. That helped me like, you know, go, you know, push it away a little bit. And once I had, you know, it sucked, but I did feel just a massive weight off of my shoulders. But I just want to be clear that comics wasn't the weight. It was my relationship to comics. It was my own shit that I hadn't dealt with. All of this shit that we all have to deal with in our 30s and 40s that we didn't know was in there in our 20s. A tale as old as time. So then I focused on directing Robot Chicken, which turned into creating Super Mansion and directing the first season of that and sort of running that, which was a full, you know, 3 full-time jobs. So then I just sort of worked until that got canceled, and then things slowed down again.
Did the TV stuff not drive you crazy in the same way? Was it not as heightened for you? Or like, is it just a different relationship entirely than you had to comics?
No, it did. But during that 3 seasons of Super Mansion, where I started talking to people, like started really asking questions about why I feel this way. Like, why is this thing that I have dedicated my life to doing also so painful? Like, what is going on? There has to be a better way. And by the time I had finished Super Mansion season 3, I felt like, you know, this stuff will never be easy, but it wasn't dark anymore. It was, and you know what it was? It was discipline and process. It was discipline and process, these things that as an artist, you fight and you struggle against, and you think makes you a hack or makes you not a real artist. And that saved me. Actually saying, how do I want to write comics? How do I write comics? How does it happen? How does writing happen? What are the games I play with myself to get the fucking words on the fucking page? Because once you start doing that, you're fine, you know? And you soon realize that writing, you can really fool yourself into thinking that writing is a mental act. It's something that happens in the brain. And man, it's not. It's a physical act. It is sitting down and making your fingers move, and then your brain follows the action. And so it was just just fucking 15 years of banging my head against a wall. That said, now I have such a sense of gratitude that I get to do this, like a sense of gratitude. Like, and when I do something and I'm like, oh my God, I just wrote a comic and I had fun the entire time and the editor isn't mad at me and my life is functioning properly, I feel like Superman, because for so long I couldn't figure that out.
I think his name is Spider-Man. I think it's
Spider-Man. I feel like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That was embarrassing. Yeah.
Is this the level of detail you guys are asking for? I'm going.
It was fantastic.
It was great, and that's part of why I brought you on here, is because I know that you're so funny and fun, and so I knew you'd bring that level of enjoyment.
And then this is what happened. This is
great.
We're up to a really fun, really cool, really chill start.
That's honestly super interesting. Like I had no idea that you were dealing with stuff like that, and it's great to hear that you've kind of overcome it in such a big way. Because we're loving the work that you're putting out, and I think everybody's really happy with it, and it's nice to know that's the product of working through all of that stuff. That's really encouraging.
Awesome.
So Super Mansion ends, and you're living off your Super Mansion royalties in a giant floating helicopter that never lands, and you're just wealthy beyond imagination, I'm sure. And how do you get back to what brings you back to Marvel? Or comics, just comics in general.
Heidi, right around when Super Mansion was winding down, or I guess there was a year left, Heidi, my wife, got cast on SNL. And so she moved to New York. And it's funny because you mentioned money, because she got cast on SNL and I instantly decided we were rich. In my head, I was like, well, okay, we're rich now. Okay, so we'll be flying to New York first class every time we have to go because we're rich. And I guess, price is no object on shoes. I'll buy a $300 pair of sneakers. And then it becomes very clear you're not rich by any stretch of the imagination. We probably took a loss on those first 2 seasons of SNL easily. And when your show gets canceled, they stop paying you. I don't know if you
that's
knew
crazy.
That,
right.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So
is that legal?
I don't think it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So quickly we went from bi-coastal to me. We got rid of the place that we were renting in LA, and I was living in a small apartment in New York, and not only trying to think of what was next, but also decompressing from the whole Robot Chicken into Super Mansion run that really felt like a nonstop roller coaster. Don't remember vacations, don't remember anything aside from a weekend here and there. It was just go. And then you start realizing, oh, I've been going like that since I got out of college. It was just one of these, you've been going for a long time, and then suddenly there's nothing to do. And then you start thinking, maybe I don't want to do anything ever again for the rest of my life.
I can't fucking wait to get there. It feels like Ethan and I are right smack dab in the middle of that.
This has become a recurring bit where we hear creators' stories and we're as we're trying to break in, we're like, this is going to be great. This is
And it is great. It's great, but you kill yourself, and
right.
And I'm sure we're all doing right now. But
I mean, this is your vacation, coming here for an hour. This is
what a load off. Thank you.
This is so much better than going to the beach.
But didn't I reach out to you first?
No,
I reached out to you. Remember?
No, you reached after. Yes, I remember. But
it was after.
You were in the room, and there's a Marvel Summit has a lot of people in the room. There's 60 people, and some of them are theme parks people, and some of them are toy people and video game people and executives and Disney people. And so you don't know there's sort of a table, and then there's chairs in the back, and at the table you sort of know who everyone is because it's mostly the writers and editors and execs and stuff. And then there's rows of seats in the back where you're just I don't know, that could be anybody. That could be a Halloween costume guy, that could be anything. And you came in and sat at the table, and I was like, who's this guy? And you were only there for a little bit, and then you were talking to Scotty Young, and when you left at the end of the summit, I was like, who was that dude? And he was like, oh, that was Zeb Wells. And I was like, oh man, I would have liked to have met him. I'm a big fan. And of course, Scotty is made fun of me for being a fan of anybody or anything, and was like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you a fan of Zeb?" And like, like, "Why do you read comics?" No, he wasn't like that. But he was like, "Oh, he's like, Zeb's great. You should hang out with him." And I was like, "Yeah, you didn't introduce me to him, so that's not really an option." And then right after that, like a few weeks after that, you emailed me. Maybe like a month or two, and you were like, "Hey, I'm living in New York. I want to talk about making comics. Like, do you want to get dinner?" Basically, right? Yeah, totally. I had somehow come across some of your tweets. They're good tweets, yeah. Yeah. And then saw that you were in New York and saw how much work you were doing. You were very, very prolific at the time. Yeah. And you also just seemed like a hustler, which you are 100%. And, sure. Yeah. You work very hard in a lot of different things. So I was like, I need to know what this guy is doing, because I had been talking about this story idea for a while, and my wife was getting a little, my wife's on my ass all the time, as we can, is clear, and so I said, well, maybe I'll write this story idea I have as a comic. That sounds cool. And then it was kind of fun because I told so many people during Robot Chicken that I was never going to write comics again. And again, that was all because of how much pain I was in at the time. Yeah. And then I said I was going to write, maybe do a creator-owned thing just for fun, put no pressure on it. And I remember getting out the whiteboard, and because I always had a whiteboard, and I put like 20 squares on it so I could sit there and sort of map out the comic, what the pages were. And I started doing that again, and it just started feeling good, man. It just felt like, oh shit, this was fun. I all that horse shit that I was adding to it was its own thing, but the actual doing of it was super fun. Yeah, right. And so then when Nick Lowe asked me to lunch and asked me to do like an 8-page story, I was more amenable. I was like, okay, let's do it. And then I just started dipping my toe in. But I had no idea. I just had no concept of whether anyone at Marvel wanted to work with me, if I was starting at zero, how this was going to happen. And so I got that Ant-Man series, and I was like, Ant-Man, sure, let's go. I ended up super enjoying it, and that's the job, right? I'm sure you guys know that. It's like you get to do it, you got to find a way to love it. You're not an Ant-Man fan. Well, you are now. Become an Ant-Man fan. Figure out what's cool about it, and I did, and I really had a great time writing that. And then you get the call for Spider-Ham, and you're like, okay, Zeb, just keep chewing through this stuff. You'll get there eventually. We'll get there. But again, ended up having a great time. Will Robson came on to do the art, which I thought was a perfect fit for that. I had so much fun just leaning into the cheesiness of the animal, the animal names and whatnot. And then what happened is I was on my way to my therapist's office, and I picked up that House of X #1, Hickman's thing, and I read that, and it just felt like, oh shit, someone's doing something big. Like this is the X-Men are now different. And Matthew, we're all big fans of your X-Men stuff. We don't have to. We don't have to. We don't have to do this. So this isn't that kind of show. And that made me. I was just like, oh, I wish. Oh, and look, they're doing other books that are coming out of this thing. Fuck, that looks fun. And they all seem fairly well thought out, conceptually with what's happening. It seems like a whole cohesive thing. Yeah, John thinks a lot. He does think a lot. He seems to. It's a real deal. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could do something like that? And, it was one of those light bulb moments where I was like, oh, maybe I could. I've written comic books before, some Marvel comics. Yeah. Maybe I could get in. And then Hellions, to me, was such a fun, special book that again showed me that, and Ant-Man and Spider-Ham showed me that the growth I had done while making Supermansion and doing Robot Chicken was sort of made my comics feel different. And I wanted to explore that. Like what had I done
to my process and what would that do to my comics. And so then I kind of jumped in with both feet and was like, oh, okay, I've got this thing. Let's fully express it. Let's see what's in there. Let's see what it can do.
Right.
Yeah. What I'm intrigued by, and this is maybe not where you want to go, but we're going to go there because it's that kind of show now. I remember when you emailed me to get food, you were like, look, you want to get coffee or something? We went out to eat. And in the email, you were like, I have an idea for a creator-owned book, and I've never been in that space. And you just talked about the creator-owned book, and we're like, oh, I was mapping it out.
Yeah.
Where is that book?
That book is written. 5 issues of it are written. It's done. And then I showed it to my good editor friend, Mackenzie Cadenhead, and she said, oh, this should be 6 issues. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then I agreed, and then it's just sat there.
There's no artist or art.
No, there's no artist.
Yeah.
Or art.
But
there is a second creator-owned book that a very talented artist, Xerxo Penalta, is doing.
Oh yeah.
Oh sweet.
Awesome work for, and he needs pages.
Sorry to bring that up then. So that book, that book sort of got you back to thinking about comics, but that book doesn't exist and you're back in comics.
Right. Yes,
that's sort of a weird. Do you feel like you've moved past that idea, or like that idea was important to go in, or like are you going to do that 6th issue and put that thing out?
I am.
Okay.
But man, it's been wild. Just as I decided to jump in both feet and fully dedicate myself to comics, then suddenly the work for Marvel Studios starts coming in and sort of taking more and more of my time. And so I've been in a sort of growth phase where I'm just trying to keep my head above water and do all the opportunities that I feel like I really need to take advantage of at the time.
Sure.
And it's all led you here. You're the head writer of the Amazing Spider-Man. Zeb
You're
Wells.
the guy.
Yeah.
Has that been like a bucket list thing for you your whole life, like some of us, or was that more of a thing that you were like, you know what? I am gonna fucking write Amazing Spider-Man.
That was subtle, Griffin, to be like some of us. That was subtle.
like some of us here on this podcast.
Like, I don't know. Yeah.
It was one of those. In my mind, it was something that real comic book writers did. You have to be a real comic book writer to do a run on Amazing Spider-Man. There's no pretending you're not. So it appealed to me in that regard. I also felt like my voice was suited for it. So I had something to offer that book. I think Amazing Spider-Man should be good, like it should be. And I felt like
I'm in that camp.
It's a hot take. Yeah.
Because it's for me, it's the biggest book at Marvel. It should,
for sure. Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want to touch it unless I felt like I could show up like Dan did or like Nick Spencer did and give it 100%, because that book should be good. Someone should be writing it who is putting their all into it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I like that. I would. It would just show that I had grown if I showed up like that. If I showed up and said and took on that responsibility. Okay, I'm going to at least do what I think is, try my hardest to make this book good.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Like my big question, because Griffin and I have gotten to speak to a million creators, but we've never gotten to speak to the current writer of Amazing Spider-Man. We've spoken to Dan Slott and everything, but never while on the book. And yeah, it is. As budding comics writers, it is of course our big pie in the sky dream to do a Spider-Man thing, and with what you're doing, it's so interesting because it's not a direction that I would have gone straight to, but I'm really enjoying because Tombstone is not a character I've been particularly attached to, but it's something it's a new thing with him that I'm finding very interesting. And my big question is whenever we talk about Spider-Man, we have pitches for a lot of characters, but Spider-Man, it's like we're too close to it. It's like I don't know that we have a lot of Spider-Man stories as is, because it's so close to our hearts and so in front of our faces. If it is this big important thing to you, how do you find where your story is in all of it? How do you say Tombstone's my guy? How do you say this is where I plant my flag? I've been very curious about that.
Yeah, it's very hard, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I think what you're talking about was part of the swirling ideas that were in my head as I decided to do this. And one of them was that I had written enough Spider-Man that I had burned through the stories that I feel like that, because when you first get on Spider-Man, you're sort of exercising these childhood ideas that you had, or what I would have done, what I would have, I've always wanted to do this, or this is, I would want to make the Lizard scary, or I would do this or that, or the Punisher. I want to do a retelling of that first giant-sized Spider-Man I read with the Punisher, where he's like on that barbed wire fence. And what was compelling to me about coming on to Spider-Man is that I didn't have those stories anymore. I had burned through them. I had done the things that were stories about things I had noticed growing up reading Spider-Man, or you want to make a joke about Aunt May's wheat cakes and this, and the 1,000 ways you can get Spider-Man to use the word responsibility, or call back to the Uncle Ben moment, which I still do in my run, because for some reason you just can't stop doing it. But of course, the goal is like, okay, what happens, Zeb? Do you trust yourself enough? Do you trust your process enough to dive into this Spider-Man book, do it at the top of your ability, but not have a plan, not have these stories, let the thing organically become, like, from what Spencer was doing before me, from this, and not try to grab the reins too hard, and just let it be something new.
And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our discussion with Zeb Wells on his career and his current run on Amazing Spider-Man. While you're waiting on part 2, make sure you follow Zeb on Twitter @ZebWells to see everything he's working on. To get the latest episodes of this podcast, as well as news, giveaways, and even comics delivered straight to your inbox, go to ashcanpress.com and sign up for the newsletter. We'll be back next week for part 2 of our discussion. In the meantime, you can write to us at ideasdon'tbleedpod@gmail.com, or tweet to Matthew Rosenberg @ashcanpress on Twitter, me @tales2astonish, or Griffin @GriffSheridan. We'll include some of your correspondence on the show, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. And big thanks to Summer People for our theme song, Where's the Poison? Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Where is